Ladies and gentlemen, we want you to stand and we want you to make some noise.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go racing here at Knoxville.
Only the best go 3 abreast.
It is show time at Williams Grove Speedway.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here at Eldora Speedway, it's showtime!
You got 'em for a breath. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
It's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy because, ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime!
Set to do battle for 30 laps. The green flag is waving.
Hello again. It is MRN's Wing Nation presented by Hercules Tires. Ride on our strength. We are glad you joined us talking sprint car racing, our favorite time of the week. Glad you joined us. Steve Post and Ray Evernham joining us. Aaron is, the words just kind of roll right along, and I've got the right last name, but Aaron is on special assignment. I think actually she's doing a piece for Three Wide Life where she's hanging out today with Danica Patrick, which that'll be great stuff to catch up with. So we've gone to the bullpen and brought in that multi-time winner in 360 and 305 sprint cars, Ray Evernham is in the house.
Mr. Aaron Crocker, as I'm known in the sprint car world. But yeah, really cool. I know she loves doing this show, and I said, hey, I'll sit in because I've always been a huge sprint car fan, and 305, a few wins there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You got it. You got it. You got trophies, right?
Yeah, no kidding. One of the most incredible fun times we had was when we ran the sprint cars with her in 2010 and did the 305 and 360 stuff. 410s with Aaron. I've said to everybody, those cars were the most incredible cars I've ever worked on or ever driven.
You can see when we hear guys like Tony Stewart, when we see guys like Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell and Casey Kane and guys like that just can't get away from it. You probably understand that more than the rest of us. We love it, but you probably understand that more than the rest of us.
I do. I mean, in the times, again, when I grew up in the World of Outlaws, I said once when we came to Cup that, look up race driver and there's a picture of Steve Kinzer, a World of Outlaws driver there. These guys that drive and work on these sprint cars and the way they do it, that's the spirit of racing. And, honestly, if I didn't know how much I know now with all the Cup stuff, that's where I'd be.
Exactly. We had fun, and I'll share a little bit behind the scenes. We went to the Jackson Nationals this year for the World of Outlaws up there, and what a great time we had. And we stayed at a hotel 10 miles from the racetrack or whatever it was. And what I just thought was so interesting is we're at the hotel where all the teams are, and all week we wake up on Friday morning, Saturday morning, and all the teams are out working on the car. You were like a kid in a candy store with all those sprint cars in the hotel parking lot.
Yeah, I like to see what they're doing, what they've changed, as the tires change with these things. What are they doing with, with their radius rods, and talking about, roll out and how they lift and drop. And it's really interesting to me because, as I said, it's something that really challenged me to try and understand how to work on a wing sprint car. And then you go from the 305 and then the 360 and then Aaron's 410, much different deal. And let me tell you, one of the proudest moments that I have in my racing career, bar none, and I mean Daytona, Indy, and also is when we made the Knoxville Nationals with her driving. That's right up there. That's a gold star at Evernham Motorsports.
Yeah. That is really cool. And by the way, he's a NASCAR Hall of Famer. So I would say the record book is pretty good, and to have a Knoxville start for Aaron along the way is really cool. We're going to have fun. We've got JJ Grasso going to join us, picked up the win at the fabulous Lincoln Speedway, and some guy by the name of Doug Wolfgang going to join us as well. When we knew Ray was coming in, we said, Ray, give us a couple of guys that you think you'd like to talk to. Doug Wolfgang is on the list. This is going to be a treat.
It really is. Like, why, if I'm going to do something, and I'm kind of an old school guy, and you talk about this, that guy's a legend, I'm going to pick his brain a little bit.
Exactly. So picking Doug Wolfgang's brain a little bit, we'll do that a little bit later on. Before we get to the break, let's talk about our classic ink screen printing and embroidery hot topics. And Ray, we speak about veteran drivers. This sport right now is at such a great spot because we think of kids like Freddie Raymer and Brock Zierfoss and Gio Scelzi, the 15-year-old kid out in California, and we think about that. But yet in this sport, when we look at this past weekend, Danny Smith up in Ohio, he won again at Atomic Speedway, 5 wins this year, 43 consecutive years in a win, and he won the Ohio Sprint Car and the Atomic Speedway Track Championship. This sport's not reserved for the young guys. It's the young at heart, really.
And that experience still counts, when you look at him and Swindell and guys like that. Now, it's another one for the 60 plus crowd, but it just goes to show that with these things, it's not just about driving fast. It's about driving smart, reading that dirt. The guys with all that experience, it just seems like at the tracks that are difficult, have a difficulty factor, they can read it, move around, and stay out in front.
And you mentioned Sammy Swindell. He is still winning. That's the hashtag they're using. Hashtag still winning. He picked up his 6th win of the year at the Lucas Oil ASCS National Tour at El Paso County Raceway in Colorado. Still winning at 61 years old, and both of them are going for the Short Track Nationals this weekend. So great stuff. And there you have it, the Classic Ink Screen Printing and Embroidery Hot Topics. Great T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, hoodies, towels, whatever you need, they've got it. Find out why drivers like Brian Brown, Donnie Schatz, Danny Dietrich, Danny Lasowski, Brady Bacon, and more, they choose Classic Ink. You should choose Classic Ink as well. We need to step away because when we come back, JJ Grasso, he joins us as we continue here on Wing Nation.
Only the best go 3 abreast, and they're coming to a track near you in 2017. No matter where you're at, the American Sprint Car Series is near you. From the Lucas Oil ASCS National Tour, presented by the Mad TV Motorsports Network, to any of the 7 ASCS regional tours, there's over 150 nights of racing to choose from in 2017. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for updates. Listen live on RacingBoys.com and get the full rundown at ASCSRacing.com.
The National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum's newest feature exhibit is our Salute to Champion Sammy Swindell, June 9th through October 15th, at the only museum in the world solely dedicated to sprint car racing, the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum in Knoxville, Iowa. Stop in and check out 8 of Sammy's original race cars and see his trophies, uniforms, and more as you learn about his outstanding career. The Salute to Champion Sammy Swindell is only this season at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum in Knoxville.
Hi, I'm Shane Stewart, and you're listening to Wing Nation.
Welcome back. It is MRN's Wing Nation, presented by Hercules Tires. Ride on our strength. So many great stories as we roll through 2017 here in the sprint car world, and had the chance a few weeks ago to do the Dirt Classic. And generally speaking, when I get a chance doing PA, when I talk to the guy once, that's pretty good. When I talk to the guy twice, that's usually really, really good. And had a chance to talk twice to JJ Grasso after a great run up there, and he followed it up with a win on Saturday night at the fabulous Lincoln Speedway, and joins us now on the hotline. Hello, JJ. Welcome back to Wing Nation.
Hey, Steve. Hey, Ray. It's great to be on the show.
Well, it is great to catch up with you. You picked up the win on Saturday night. Tell us about winning that big one up at Lincoln.
It was awesome. We started up front in the feature there. We started outside pole and got to the lead on lap 10, and I had Danny Dietrich nipping at my heels for 20 laps, and we ended up picking up the win. So it was really good for our team, and we'll carry that momentum hopefully into next year.
Well, not only you had Dietrich, you had Monteith, you had Lucas Wolf, Craig Hodnett, so you had a trail of guys behind you. But, me growing up around the New Jersey area in Flemington and Hightstown and Bridgeport and all that, it was URC. And you dominated the URC, and we were just talking a little while ago. I thought that you went from URC, put a 410 in your car, and went and won a 410 race at New Egypt Speedway, maybe for your first 410. But how important is a club like URC with all its history to get young guys like you to start? Now you're out there racing with these, Eastern Pennsylvania guys.
Yeah, like you said, URC is it's one of those fundamental groups. To have a 360 is different than a 410 because you're reducing the horsepower by about 200. So you get a little bit more feel for the car. So that's kind of where I got my my learning experience. And like you said, ended up dominating a couple of years there. So to get into 410 ranks, it's a learning curve. And I mean, without groups like URC, it's hard to get to a 410 level because it's so much more horsepower and it's a little bit more pricey for motors and stuff. So I just can't imagine being able to do that, drop in a 410 at New Egypt. I mean, that's always been a good track for me. So when we did that and it ended up working out, we ended up pretty much going to that race and just mopping up. So it felt real good.
I can imagine. I really can. JJ Grasso joins us, and it's funny listening to JJ because we talked to David Gravel, who has a URC history. Aaron has a history with the Empire Super Sprints, and those regional tours have done a good job. JJ, my curiosity is, you're a kid from Delaware. Where did the sprint car love come from? Where did that passion for sprint cars come from for you?
Well, I kind of grew up with it. I started racing quarter midgets with my dad at age 7, so we kind of just got involved that way. A friend of ours, Mike Miller, he started racing micro sprints, and that's kind of where I got my 37 number from. So I kind of just took after him and started running good in quarter midgets. We kind of moved up to the micro sprints and did good there back in the early 2000s. So we kind of migrated up to the sprint cars to see what we could do since we did so well in micros. And it was a little bit more learning we had to do in the sprint car ranks, but worked up to the 360s, did good there, and then we figured we'd go and get a 410 and try and make it happen. So we run a limited schedule. There's no way we can run for a championship. Just, with time you got to put in. I mean, it's crazy that those guys can put that much time in to run basically a full-time season in Central PA, because the amount of money you have to have for motors and cars is outstanding. So for us to go run 7 or 8 races and pick up a couple of wins is pretty awesome.
You run really well at New Egypt. You run really well at Lincoln. And, from a fan perspective, I look and think those tracks are quite different. But are there some similarities? Why do you run so well at both those tracks? Is there something you really like about them?
New Egypt's just kind of close to home, so it's always kind of been a home track for us. When we raced URC, we went there, usually we went there 4 or 5 times, depending on the weather. But yeah, we went there quite a bit with URC. So once I started getting the feel for the track, I think I won 4 out of 5 races we had there in URC one year. And then when we put the 410 in, it was kind of the same stomping grounds. You're familiar with the track, and you know where you need to lift and where you need to put some more power down to it. So it gave me a little bit of an edge when we went there with the 410, because most of those guys hadn't been to that track yet. So it worked in our advantage.
JJ, what are the challenges? You talked about the time involved with it and the money being involved with it. The challenges being based in Delaware and spending time, you go up to New Egypt, which is a home game for you, but getting over to Central Pennsylvania, that can't be an easy task either.
Now it turns into pretty much an all-day event. It takes us usually 2.5 hours to get to the track, so we leave a little bit early. Usually, like Saturday, we left at 1 o'clock to get to the track, and by the time we get home, it's usually after midnight or after 1. So it turns into an all-day deal. But yeah, going out and racing with those guys, that you're racing with the best. So to go out there and prove yourself, it feels real good. So yeah, we do have to have a little bit earlier start on Saturday than most guys.
I got like a crew chief question, because my brain keeps going on and going on. When you're talking about the 200 horsepower, I'm thinking to myself, okay, man, you go from 360, you pick up all that speed. Is it wings? Is it shocks? The tires grow different. Is there a formula that you use, or is it something that you feel and say, hey guys, I need this, and change it that night?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those deals. My dad's been pretty much my crew chief my whole life, other than when I was driving for somebody. So he kind of knows the way it's been since I was 7 racing quarter midgets. He kind of knew what I was looking for, or go with that. It's everything, I guess. The shocks you get, we use VRP shocks, and Vince is real good with those, and you get good quality performance out of them. So we use him, and I mean, we've had a little bit more money for some tires this year since we were running well when we did do good, and the sponsors came up for us. So yeah, you got to have new tires on that 410. That's the one thing you can get away with a 360. You might be able to use a used right rear a couple of nights, save a couple of dollars. But the 410, it loves the new right rear, and if you can put a left rear on too, you're even better off. So that's what we've been trying to do, and it's worked in our advantage. But yeah, 200 horsepower is a big difference. When I first jumped into that 410, you can feel it.
Amazing, it really is. JJ, as we've talked to you and followed along this year, we see Julie, of course, your wife, does all kinds of posts on social media. Your dad, you talk about being the crew chief. I think that was the thing that really struck out to me. We talked about the Dirt Classic at Lincoln. Man, I'll tell you what, if you're going to go have success, if you're going to go beat the Pennsylvania posse, you're going to go run with them, it has to be really rewarding to do it. Yeah, I know you'd like to get that big ride where someone paid the check and just had you show up, but it has to be rewarding to do that with a family.
It definitely is. I mean, when you can go and do it with your family, it seems to be a little bit more fun for me. You have more enjoyment. My dad, my mom, they're all there. The guys that work on our car are our friends, and they help pretty much sponsor the car in a way. So to do it with our team, it's family, friends. We're going to do it together. So when we make the haul out there, it's a lot of bonding time. And yeah, my wife keeps up on everything too with the social media. My buddy Donnie does my Twitter on race nights to keep everything going, and it's a full team event. So yeah, to go and have a good run like that at the Dirt Classic from 20th to end up 6th, I probably could end up 5th, but I was starting to get a little dehydrated there. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. And that was our first race at Lincoln all season. I mean, we've won at Lincoln before, but to go in there that deep into the season where guys had plenty of time to get on the track and know what it was doing all year and go and have a good run. It's pretty awesome.
JJ, we're up against the break, so I got to keep this one really tight. But I chatted with you on the front stretch. The Beer Hill Gang sponsored that Hard Charger Award, and you mentioned something, and I really have thought about it a lot. We've shared your story. You race a very limited schedule. What's it like to race a limited schedule, but to be out there at a night at Lincoln, and all of a sudden you go by Brian Brown, you go by Kerry Madsen, you go by guys like that? That's got to be pretty cool as well when you sit back and think about it.
It's really, it's unbelievable. That's how I can think of it. I mean, but you see those cars on the track, they're just another car, but then you look at it in perspective, it's monumental to be able to race those guys and pass them.
Yep, no doubt. Monumental indeed. Congratulations on the win on Saturday night. We appreciate the time. Continued success as you guys look forward to 2018. We appreciate it. Thanks, JJ.
Yes, I appreciate you guys having me on the show. Thank you.
There we go. That is JJ Grasso. This sport, we talked about Sammy Swindell and Danny Smith have been doing it forever. We talk about kids. There's so many people doing sprint car racing in so many neat ways. JJ Grasso, what a great story for the family.
And it really is, because you look, he talked about quarter midgets and the way that he worked his way up and doing it with the family, and his dad's always been his crew chief. And I can tell you that if you don't take that time to experience and enjoy that, the rest of it is just stuff. So to hear that story about this kid who's won in quarter midgets and stepped all the way up to sprint cars, still with his family, I think that's what it's really all about.
That is really, really neat. Neat stuff, that's for sure. Hey, we need to step away. When we come back, Doug Wolfgang. He'll join us next.
For over 50 years, drivers in sprint car, midget, micro, modified, and even dirt late model have taken the checkered flag on Weld racing wheels. Legendary drivers like Joe Saldana, Carl, Mark, and Steve Kinzer, Doug Wolfgang, and countless other racers have trusted Weld racing wheels for their superior strength and lightweight construction to finish ahead of the competition. With 50 years of race-winning engineering and technology, American-made Weld racing wheels are designed and built to withstand virtually any abuse you throw at them. Weld Racing, proven speed.
If your vehicle is riding rough, it may be time for new shocks or struts. Right now at O'Reilly Auto Parts, buy a combination of 2 or 4 select Monroe or Rancho shocks and struts and get up to an $80 Visa gift card by mail. Improve your ride with Monroe or Rancho shocks and struts at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Limit supply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Danny Holkraver, and you're listening to Wing Nation on MotorRacingNetwork.com.
Welcome back. It is MRN's Wing Nation, presented by Hercules Tires. Ride on our strength. In motorsports, there are names that just have their own meaning. We were here, and of course, we're the voice of NASCAR, MRN is, and today in the hallways, we're talking about just the name Talladega just jumps out at you. Well, in the sprint car world, the name Wolfgang just jumps out at you, and it grabs you, and it conjures up so many great thoughts and so many great races along the way. Why not? Let's dial him up. He is a legend, a Hall of Famer in the sprint car world. Doug Wolfgang's on the line. Hello, Doug. Welcome back to Wing Nation.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it is great. What's up? What's going on? What's Doug Wolfgang up to these days?
No, I'm just an old fart. How about you?
Oh, I'm trying to become an old fart. That's what I'm looking for. That's my goal.
Well, if you're lucky, you'll get there, just like I have.
Hey, I don't want to hear about that old fart stuff, because I remember you slapped my wife on the butt at Knoxville. And I was like, hey, you're talking about mixed emotions, right? Here's one of my heroes.
Yeah.
So I was like, you're the only one that could get away with that. He said, I'm an old fart. Don't worry about it. But that, you know. But,
the problem is, what are you going to do about it?
Oh,
right?
so that was it. I thought to myself, it'd be even more embarrassing to have this old fart kick my butt here in the pits at Knoxville, because he's pretty tough. But when I wanted to sit in with Aaron, they said, "Who do you want to talk to?" I said, "Man, I want to talk to Wolfgang, because we haven't talked in a while, and we had some really good conversations. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about the sport. As one of the things that has amazed me lately, since we did it in 2010, it looks like the cost of having a car and a motor has gone up about 40%. Wow. And if that continues, the car count will continue down. What would you change, Doug, if you were the czar of sprint car? What would you change?
Well, I'm glad I'm not, because I don't know where I would start. But you're absolutely right. The prices have gone so far out of whack compared to what you can charge the fans to watch, what you can pay the racers back. It's almost unbelievable. And it's just the way things are. People find out, when you make a rule to try to make to make it cheaper, it doesn't take long before some mechanical whiz bang will come up with a way to break, to make that rule to his advantage where his car's faster. And so the guy, it's just gotten to where everybody can figure anything out. And it just costs more money and more money and more money. So I don't know what I would do first.
Well, you and I are responsible for driving some of that up, because I know that you did some pretty special things to your car, and I did too. Right. But while you're on, I mean, I need to know. We talk about tough. We talk about the old guys, with Kinzer and Swindell and all those guys. Who would you pick now to race? Who would you race wheel to wheel with? What are the young guys you want to race with?
You mean if I was a car owner who I want to hire?
If Doug Wolfgang's in his prime, who'd you want to run with wheel to wheel now?
Well, obviously you'd want to run with Schatz, because he wins everything, and if you could run wheel to wheel with him, you would probably make a buck enough to keep going and enjoy your life. So.
What about that Gravel kid? He's not doing too bad.
No, he's excellent, just outstanding, and I don't, to think where he come from, somewhere up in Connecticut or wherever it's at, to be a dirt track racer and to persevere at his age, because he's so young yet, 24 or 5 or whatever he is, to get to the top flight pinnacle, the World of Outlaw level, to win races, to win big races. It's just unbelievable, because it costs so much to get going now. Even my son raced a little bit until it just was too extremely expensive. He had to go make a living, and he got married and has a baby, and it costs money to do things, and you just have to set your priorities. And to see David Gravel, persevere through that and still become excellent. One of the best in the country is almost unbelievable. My hat's off to him.
It is amazing. The kid has just burst onto the scene and just done incredible things, and he can really wheel a car. And talking to crew chiefs, they said he just gets up on the wheel like nobody in the current era. I do want to go back, because we've been around here for 7 or 8 years, and it's been the Schatz era of the sport. Doug, when you look at a racer like Donnie Schatz, what are the attributes? What are the qualities? We know he has the natural skill, but the longevity, the way he does things, the relationship with the crew chief, what are the things that have made that such a special race car driver for so many years?
Well, for one thing, he started out driving for his dad, and the basic team that he started out driving for when he was 16 years old. And a lot of people forget this, but when he was 16 and 17, he used to tear them in half every other weekend, and he was just like all the rest of us were when we were kids, and he wasn't all that good, but he hung with it. But the biggest thing that I think sets him apart is the same basic team he started driving with, the same basic cars, the same basic engines he's got now with Tony Stewart's team. Tony just kind of took over his team, and I know the mechanics have changed now and then. The cars have changed barely, once or twice maybe. The motors, Sabre builds the motors, and he's been doing it for as long as I can remember. Everything's the same, and it is. And I think the only thing that isn't the same is Donnie Schatz. He just grew with it and grew and grew and grew, until he almost is undefeatable.
Doug, we got a tweet that reminded me about a lap that I saw you guys run at Flemington. I can't even remember when. Would have been in the 80s, sometime there. But it was an unbelievable, at that time, I believe, a world record for one lap in a sprint car on a 5/8 mile track at Flemington. You remember that?
Yeah. That's been a long time ago.
And it didn't take long to complete it.
Yeah. Actually, you're the only one that I would know that would be living long enough to remember that.
Wow. Man.
Hey, we're old, but hey, look, when you can get away with slapping my wife on the butt, you know we're old buddies, right? You know, I used to see you a lot at the Cup races, and you'd come and talk to Jeff Gordon and I, you know, a lot. Is there ever a time that you look back and think, I could have done that, and have any regrets about not following that path?
The only time I ever think about it, and it's very seldom anymore, is when I take my pants off and I realize, you know, and I'm naked taking a shower, and I realize that about 3/4 of my body is full of burn scars, and I think, man, do I wish I would have ever went to driving stock cars. But the truth is, by the time I got a chance to drive, because I don't think I would have got burned in a stock car. I might have gotten killed. I don't know, but I don't think I would have gotten burned. But the truth is, when I got a chance to drive stock cars, I was 32, and if you think you're gonna start driving a stock car at 32 and get into the best car in the field and prove your worth, you're crazy. You're going to start at the bottom of the league just like everybody else did, and you're going to work your way up. It's going to take 4 or 5 years minimum. And for me, when I got a chance when I was 32 or 3 or whenever it was, I could see that it wasn't just going to be step into it and have a great time and make multi-millions. It just wasn't going to happen. So there were, you know, for me, it didn't take long to realize I just need to go home and concentrate on what I was doing, and I lucked out after that and won several more races.
Several more, I would say. Hey, Doug, I had the chance this year. I'm kind of the newbie to the sport here, so I've only been doing this about 7 years. But we went up and we did the Weichert Memorial up at Port Royal this year. Wing Nation, we did live shows up there and had the chance to get to meet the Weichert family. That was, you know, I think the irony of it is you talked about Donnie Schatz and the longevity with the same team. Yet your career, you raced here for a few years and you jumped to this one and you jumped to that one and had the success. Those years in the Weichert car with so many memories and wins, is that the quintessential Doug Wolfgang? Is that Doug Wolfgang at his best, or was there another time when you were up to par with that stage?
Well, that would have been as good as I ever was, but I was also good in a couple cars before that.
Yeah.
And 1 or 2 after that. But I would say the biggest thing that mattered at that time was I was in my I was 32 or 3 or somewhere right in there. I had, you know, approximately 10 years of experience, or 12 before I got in that car. And they had, at that time, they had the finest equipment that Bob could provide, and they had Davy Brown Jr. and Senior mechanic in it, and they were both excellent mechanical guys, and they worked with me real well, and it was just the perfect matchup at that time, you know. But not to make anybody else mad that I drove for. To me, those are the best years that I can remember. I had a few years after that, and a couple, you know, when I first raced back in the middle 70s with Bob Trossel, I had great years. So I had great years with other people.
You know, and I hope that you remember a lot about those Weichert cars, and that you're keeping your fabrication skills sharp, because I've got a car that was a Weichert car, a Ben Cook car that you drove in Florida and won some races with it down there, I think 7 or 8 races, and actually cut an inch out of the frame, I think, down there while you're running. Old big block car, and we're gathering parts to restore that. So that means you're going to come and help me put that back together, right?
Well, actually, I live in America. You live in North Carolina, so I don't know if I'll make it or not.
We're part of America, bud. Lots of American flags here.
Most of you guys down there talk with such an unbelievable draw that I can't understand it.
I'm from New Jersey.
I knew that. Same.
Well, he's still ornery.
I remember my dad going with me to a race one time, and when I drove for Weichert, he come out of the trailer and he said, "What the hell are those guys talking about? I can't understand them." I said, "So I've raced with them for 4 years, Dad, and I haven't understood them for 4 years either, so join the club."
That is fantastic. It is. It is. It really is. Hey, I've got one more question before we cut you loose here, and it's a name you mentioned. You talked about the Weikert days, and a name we've been talking about all this year, Davy Brown Sr., teaming up at 83 years old with Donnie Kreitz and Lance DeWeese, and they've been the dream team, the Hall of Fame team. Just what's your take on Davy Brown Sr. maybe being the crew chief of the year this year in sprint car racing? Is that not crazy?
Well, now, if you know Davey, it ain't crazy. I mean, you know how you always hear that saying, he's forgotten more than you've ever learned? Well, Davey is that guy. I mean, he truthfully has forgotten more about racing than you'll ever know. He has a wealth of knowledge, and he's a great guy, knows what's going on. If you just let him alone, he's a little crude and rude. He's got a little grease on his pants. He wears flannel shirts. He don't really care about talking to most everybody. And, I mean, I raced with him for 4 years, and we talk. We say more words on the phone now that we're old farts than we did in 4 years we raced. But I didn't have no problem with him. He knew what he was doing, and he still does.
I agree. I was up at Lincoln a few weeks ago, and I've watched him win so many races in the last couple of years. And you see him walk out with a wrench and a tape measure, and you're thinking, there's some guys in this pit area that are getting ready to have their butts handed to them. I mean,
oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Did you know that Davy Brown took Johnny Mackison Sr. and went to the first Darlington 500 when it was the first super speedway in those, 1950?
No.
Yes, he did. And I think the first or second one they finished in the top 10. I'm pretty sure of it.
That's a new one. We're gonna.
Wow, yeah.
Well, you got both our attention on that one as guys that love the history of stock car racing as well as sprint cars.
That's how much Davey knows. That's how long he's been around.
Oh my
God. And he still remembers stuff about those days.
Unreal. Yeah. Like every conversation we ever have with you, Doug. Now our minds. Ray's working on building a car. I'm trying to figure out how Davy Brown was working on a NASCAR, a stock car at Darlington, and it all comes from a great time hanging out with you, Doug. Thanks so much for the time, and we certainly wish you the best going forward. But thanks for joining us here on Wing Nation.
And keep your hands to yourself or when you're around my wife.
Whoa.
Okay, Ray.
Take care, buddy.
Good to hear from you.
See you.
There we go.
Bye.
Wow. Legendary Doug Wolfgang with another legendary conversation.
Yeah, he is one of my favorite people. You always get honesty from him, and you sit there, and for me, I sit there in awe because, like I said, I know how hard it is to do this stuff, whether it's stock car racing, sprint car racing, and guys like that. I think it doesn't even register to them how good they are and how in awe we've been of watching their career. So to be able to sit and jab back and forth with them like that, it makes me feel pretty cool.
It is really, really cool. We need to step away. More Wing Nation in just a moment.
Citywide to countryside, whatever you drive, wherever you go. Hercules Tires has the value, selection, and industry-leading warranty to get you there, no matter where the road takes you. To learn more, visit HerculesTire.com. Hercules Tires, ride on our strength.
Classic Ink USA Screen Printing and Embroidery is constantly testing the limits of custom racewear and specialized embroidery. Headquartered in Western Pennsylvania, Classic Ink holds the highest standard, maximizing your return as well as the ultimate customer satisfaction. From track swag fanwear to quick crew wear, Classic Ink has you covered. Their dedicated staff and designers will keep your race team and fans looking sharp. Contact Classic Ink today and get your team ahead of the competition. www.classicinkusa.com. That's Classic Ink at the track and on your back.
O'Reilly.
A dead battery can leave you stranded, so get yours tested for free during Superstart Battery Month at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Need a replacement? Purchase a Superstart Extreme or Superstart Platinum battery and get up to $25 in O'Reilly gift cards after a mail-in rebate. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Limits apply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Sheldon Hanshield. You're watching Wing Nation.
Welcome back. It is MRN's Wing Nation here, and we appreciate it. Joined by Ray Evernham on the program here today, and just had a great conversation with Doug Wolfgang and JJ Grasso. Hey, we'd like to talk about the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, one of the most special spots on earth, and we do this under the birthday calendar that we have. Monday's birthday, Pat O'Connor, Travis Spider-Webb, Don Kreitz Jr. celebrated a birthday yesterday. When we look at tomorrow, John Stambra, Wilbur Shaw later this week, Chad Layton, Chris Economaki, Tom Cherry. Today would have been Ralph, or actually still is Ralph LaGuardia, I think at 90 years old.
Ralphie the Racer.
Ralphie the Racer is his birthday today. And Emmett Hahn, 77 years old today to Emmett, 2007 inductee into the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. Emmett raced super modified cars from about 62 to 82. Tulsa Fairground champion 5-time, won the big Hutchinson Nationals 3 times, but he had an eye injury, and listening to Emmett talk about it, he had trouble seeing the racetrack, the line that he wanted.
I had that trouble too, and I didn't have an eye injury.
Exactly. So he climbed out, he formed ASCS, which has been pretty good, and that little event called the Chili Bowl, well, that's pretty good as well.
He's done okay.
Yes, he is. Emmett Hahn, a Hall of Famer in every stretch of the word. And you can check out Emmett's display at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, turn number 2 at Knoxville. Got about a minute and a half left here. We talked about Doug Wolfgang and some of those guys being so good they don't even know how good they are. Kyle Larson, you're a stock car guy, you're a sprint car guy. How good is Kyle Larson?
In the words of Jeff Gordon, the best that's come along in a long time. You know, he is the guy, and you talk to anybody in the circuit, they will tell you that. And I think it's because of his dirt and sprint car background. A lot of the guys that have driven pavement their whole life have to pay attention to the science. They're so focused on the science of the line and the tires and everything that's right, but that sprint car, non-wing, wing, whatever it is, gets to the point to where they find something extra to get it done. They go past the science and go on pure ability. And right now, Kyle Larson is proving that he's got the ability that everybody thought he had.
I watched him in the Xfinity race in Chicagoland a few weeks ago, and when we know the big bulky stock cars, they all look the same going around the racetrack, but there are times when he makes a car, it's special to watch him go around the racetrack. And just to watch him do it, the line, the edge that he puts it on, it's phenomenal to watch. It really is.
And his movements with the steering wheel are not like he's swatting flies.
No.
He's ahead of that thing all the time.
He's pretty good in a sprint car, too.
Yeah, he does a good job with that.
Does a good job with that, too, on his weekend job, that's for sure. When Chip allows him to do it, I think 25 times a year, which is great for all of us sprint car fans. Ray, been a pleasure. Great hanging out with you. I appreciate you filling in for the other half there.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. Certainly can fill in with her on this stuff. Can't sit in the seat of the sprint car like she can, but it was fun too.
Exactly. Great stuff. We appreciate Ray's time, but more important than all of that, thank you for joining us. Thanks to JJ Grasso, and thank you to the legend Doug Wolfgang for joining us here as well. Again, thanks for joining us here on Wing Nation.
You've been listening to Winged Nation, presented by Hercules Tires, right on our strength. You can also find Winged Nation on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and in the MRN.com Media Center. Winged Nation is a production of the Motor Racing Network. All rights reserved.